right. Ready to dive into something a little bit, maybe a little bit daring today.
Oh, lay it on me. I'm intrigued.
So we're tackling Law 7 from, the 48 Laws of Power.
Okay, getting into the nitty-gritty. I like it.
And this one, it's all about, well, how do I put this delicately? Getting others to do the work, but always making sure you get the credit.
Ooh, sneaky. Sounds a little Machiavellian, doesn't it?
It does, right? But gotta remember, we're not here to, endorse this stuff. It's more about understanding how these power dynamics work.
Yeah, like knowing the rules of the game, even if you don't want to play dirty yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of playing the game, there's no better example than the story of Nikola Tesla.
Oh, Tesla. Brilliant. Brilliant guy.
Genius, but maybe not so good at, well, the whole power game thing.
Right.
So picture this. 1883, young Tesla arrives in America, full of dreams, ready to revolutionize the world of electricity.
He was incredibly hardworking, dedicated. I mean, this guy had a vision, a future powered by electricity. And he was relentless in his pursuit of it.
And he ends up working with Thomas Edison.
Edison, now, he was more of a businessman, right? Not so much an inventor himself.
But he knew talent when he saw it. So he gives Tesla this task: improve his dynamos. Those early electrical generators, even promises him a huge sum of money, like $50,000 if he can redesign them. Big bucks back then.
Oh, yeah, serious cash. Though who knows if Edison ever actually intended to pay up.
Right. But Tesla, dedicated as ever, throws himself into the project, works tirelessly for a year, comes back with this drastically improved dynamo design.
What'd Edison say?
Get this. Tesla, you don't understand our American humor.
Ouch. That's gotta sting. Not only did he not get the money, but his work was basically dismissed as a joke.
Talk about adding insult to injury. And this is exactly how Law 7 can be used to, exploit someone, take advantage of their talent and dedication.
Absolutely. It shows how important it is not just to create something valuable, but to make sure you get the credit, protect your work.
But Tesla, resilient guy, doesn't give up. Moves on to an even bigger idea: alternating current, AC power.
Ah, the system we use today. But back then, it was revolutionary.
Totally. And this put him at odds with Edison, who was pushing his own system, direct current, DC power.
The battle of the currents, they called it. Real clash of egos and technology.
And Tesla, always thinking big, finds an ally in George Westinghouse. Westinghouse sees the potential of AC power, funds Tesla's research, offers him a pretty generous royalty agreement for his inventions. Things are finally looking up, right?
You'd think so, but this is where things get, well, you know how vultures kind of circle, waiting to swoop in.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. As Tesla's AC system gets more popular, suddenly other scientists are trying to claim credit for his breakthroughs.
Trying to ride his coattails.
Exactly. And even Westinghouse, his supposed ally, starts pushing Tesla's name into the background.
Classic case of someone else trying to steal the spotlight. Makes you realize how important it is to be careful, strategic about when you reveal your work. You gotta be ready to defend it.
And it gets worse, believe it or not. Westinghouse, facing pressure from the financier J.P. Morgan, ends up backing out of that royalty agreement.
Wow. Can you imagine pouring your heart and soul into something that changes the world and then getting completely cheated out of what you deserve?
It's heartbreaking, really. Tesla ends up with a tiny fraction of what his invention was actually worth. Reminds me of that explorer, Vasco Nunez de Balboa. Discovered the Incan Empire.
Yeah, and best.
Betrayed, executed, his discovery was stolen by someone else. These stories, they really highlight a brutal truth. Discovering something valuable, that's just step one. You gotta be just as smart about protecting your claim, making sure you get the recognition and the rewards you deserve.
Man, it's almost like to really succeed, you gotta be as cunning as you are brilliant, or you'll get, trampled. But hey, let's shift gears a bit. We've been focusing on the dark side of Law 7, the exploitation part. But there's got to be a smarter, more, calculated way to use it, right?
Absolutely. It's not always about, taking advantage. Sometimes it's about recognizing, hey, you don't have to do everything yourself. It's like, why reinvent the wheel when you can, build on what's already there?
Right. Right. That reminds me of, what's that phrase? Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. It's like having this huge treasure chest of knowledge, experience from the past, just waiting for you to, use it to propel yourself forward.
Okay, I like that. So who's a good example of this? Someone who, really mastered this concept.
Well, how about Peter Paul Rubens, the painter? Now, Rubens, he wasn't just a talented artist. He was a master delegator. He created this thing called a studio system. Basically, he had skilled assistants working on different parts of his paintings.
So wait, he wasn't actually painting every single, like, brushstroke himself.
Not necessarily. You see, Rubens, he understood that in the art world, it's all about perception. His studio system, it let him create a ton of work, but still keep that crazy high level of quality.
It was like, what, a whole team of artists working under his direction, each one with their own, special skills, all coming together to make these masterpieces.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It was like this well-oiled, creative machine. And sure, some people might say, hey, that's exploitative, but there's a real brilliance to it too. Rubens, he understood that by using the talents of others, he could do way more than any single artist ever could on their own.
Yeah, and his clients were probably blown away by how much he could produce, right? Like, it was almost like he was hacking the system.
He was playing the game, but he's playing it smart. And that brings us to a really important point about Law 7. It's not just about getting other people to do the work. It's about knowing when to share credit and when to, position yourself as the mastermind.
It's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to give your team credit, but you also don't want to fade into the background, right?
Exactly. And this brings us to another fascinating example, Henry Kissinger. Now, Kissinger, he was a pro at navigating, all those power circles. Secretary of State under Nixon, right? Huge role in all those big foreign policy wins, including, of course, the opening to China.
But wasn't it Nixon who got most of the credit for that?
That's right. And that was completely intentional on Kissinger's part. He knew that in politics, like a lot of fields, there's a pecking order. And sometimes it's better to let the higher-ups take the credit, especially if it helps you in the long run.
So he was playing the long game, letting Nixon take the spotlight,
Yeah.
but actually strengthening his own position behind the scenes. That's pretty slick.
Kissinger was a master at understanding, the subtle dance of power. He knew that sometimes the best way to gain power is to seem like you have less of it.
So we've seen two sides of the coin now. You've got Tesla, the brilliant guy who gets taken advantage of, and then you have Rubens and Kissinger, who both use the work of others to achieve these incredible things.
And the real lesson here is that Law 7, it's not inherently good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, you can use it to build something up, or you can use it to tear something down.
It comes down to intent then, right? Are you trying to help yourself and others, or are you just trying to manipulate and exploit people?
That's the big question. We all have to ask ourselves that when we're dealing with these power dynamics, right? It's about finding that balance between ambition and integrity, between using the talents of others, but also making sure everyone's treated fairly, that they get the recognition they deserve.
So we've gone through, the good and the bad of Law 7, seeing how it can be used in different ways. But now for the big question. How do we actually UEC this stuff in our own lives? It's easy to talk about, but actually applying it, that's a whole different story.
Right. That's where the rubber meets the road. And I think the first thing to remember is Law 7 is a tool. Like any tool, you got to know how to use it the right way.
So it's not about just blindly following the rules.
Nope. It's about understanding what's behind the rules and then, figuring out how they apply to your own situation.
Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even start?
Well, it all starts with self-awareness, right? You got to be honest with yourself. What are your motivations? Why do you want to achieve this particular thing? Is it for a good reason? Or is it just your ego talking?
So check our intentions at the door, make sure we're not just trying to climb the ladder and, step on everyone else on the way up.
Exactly. If you're just trying to exploit people, take credit for their hard work, that's going to backfire. It's not a sustainable strategy,
So how do we, walk that fine line? How do we use other people's talents without, crossing that ethical line?
It's all about creating a win-win. Recognizing that, hey, success is a team effort. Everyone deserves to share in the rewards. Remember Rubens? Yeah, he had assistants, but he also created a system where they could learn and grow, show off their skills. It wasn't just about him, It was about everyone working together to create something amazing.
So it's not just delegating tasks, it's about, empowering people.
Yeah, that's it. It's about giving people a chance to shine, to contribute their own special skills to the project. And when you create that kind of environment, everyone gets the credit they deserve.
It's like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
Focus on helping others, and your own success will follow.
Exactly. And here's another thing. You don't always have to be the smartest person in the room. Actually, surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, in some areas at least, that's a strength, not a weakness.
So it's okay to admit you don't know everything, to rely on other people's expertise.
Of course, no one's an expert at everything. The important thing is to know your own strengths and weaknesses and then build a team that fills in the gaps.
Like putting together a, what is it, dream team. Each player bringing their A game to the table.
Yeah, like that. And when you have the right team and you create an environment of, trust and respect, that's when amazing things happen. You can achieve things you could never do on your own.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Law 7, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all this?
I'd say this. Law 7, it's not about being manipulative or taking advantage of people. It's about understanding how power works and using that knowledge to create something truly great, something that benefits everyone involved.
It's about empowering yourself and the others, using your combined talents to, achieve something bigger than yourselves.
Exactly. That's the real essence of Law 7.
And that's it for our deep dive into Law 7. We hope you found it, insightful, thought-provoking, maybe even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to be the best you can be, both individually and, as a force for good in the world.